Hi guys, this is Dr. Houlihan. This video here is to help you review for the cell cycle material. So there'll be other videos that are going to cover other material in the unit, but this one's just going to focus on the cell cycle. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. So what I'm showing here is the cell cycle diagram and the notes that we've taken in class. This should look very familiar to you. We've worked with it multiple times in class and outside of class. So let's first talk about the cell cycle in general. So remember that the cell cycle is a series of events that a cell is going to go through and its lifespan. It's going to go from being one cell and then it's going to divide and become two cells. Two identical cells that we call daughter cells. So if you even look here, this is showing you how one cell has then divided and become two cells. Those two cells are then going to go and enter into the cell cycle themselves, and then those two cells are going to lead to four cells. This is how we can get to grow, and this is how we can repair. This is how cells can replace themselves. Throughout this cell cycle, you're going to see that it's not only just cyclic, but you're also going to see that it's very stepwise, and that there's very designated steps that need to occur in order. It's very sequential. For everything to turn out properly in the cell, each step has to be taken in order and has to be completely done and done correctly. There's going to be a lot of checkpoints at each point that we're going to talk about here too. So the cell cycle first is divided into two main stages. And just like you have stages of your life, you have like stages where you're a toddler, then you have stages where you're adolescent, then you have stages where you're a young teenager, and then you're a young adult, and then you have elderly. So there's different stages in your life where you do different things. That's what happens here in the cell. Is the first main stage of a cell's life is called interphase. And you're going to see that even just looking at the time period that's been shown here on this chart, is that interphase takes up the majority of a cell's life. After interphase, it enters the phase called M phase. M phase is actually called the dividing phase. So interphase is more of like a phase where it's preparing to divide, and then M phase is the phase where it's actually going to be dividing. Now each of these major phases can also be subdivided into smaller phases. Interphase can be subdivided into three phases called G1, S, and G2. In each of these phases, they're going to do very different things. In G1, the cell is going to mainly just sit there and it's going to grow because it's a brand new baby cell. It's small, it's just the smallest it's been. It's going to need to spend some time to grow before it's going to divide. So it's going to just spend there some growing. Once it's growing, it's going to hit a checkpoint. Once it's okay to go, then the cell is going to be like, all right, we can go on into S phase. Then it's going to go into your S phase. S phase is the phase where you're actually going to start replicating your DNA. So in order for a cell to maintain this equal amounts of DNA, it's going to have to replicate, make a duplicate copy first, and then divide them into two cells. Because if you just divided your DNA immediately, you're going to start with 46, then you're going to, each daughter cell is going to have 23, and that's not going to do, because they have to be identical to the original cell. So in S phase, you have to duplicate your DNA. So if you're a human cell, you start with 46, duplicate it up, that gives you to 92. Cool? Cool. Okay, once this is done correctly, the cell is going to have another checkpoint at this right here. Before it can even enter G2 phase, the cell is going to make sure that that DNA is replicated perfectly. We don't want to have any mutations here. So if it is replicated perfectly, then it's going to be allowed to go on to the third stage, which is called G2. Once it's in G2, this is where the cell is going to prepare to be divided. It's going to double check everything. It's going to make sure it's going to like grow a little bit more if it needs to. But this is where the final checkpoint occurs. Once it gets the final okay, and it's like, yep, you're good to divide. We're all prepped and ready. Everything's duplicated. We're plenty ready. Then it's going to go into your M phase. M phase can be subdivided itself into two different phases. First subphase is called mitosis. In mitosis is where you're going to is where you're going to split your nucleus. Then you have the second subphase, which is called cytokinesis. This is where you're actually going to split your cytoplasm. So the actual act of dividing the cell happens in two stages. Mitosis first, then cytokinesis. You first split your nucleus, then you split your cytoplasm. Cool? Okay. And the next phase we're going to talk about, going to detail, is more of mitosis. We'll talk about that in a further video because that's going to take a little bit more in depth. But this is overall just the cell cycle itself. Okay, if you have any questions, email me and come see me after school. Okay, bye. Thanks for watching.